Basically, he would tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters.
I'd rather lose a lover than to love a loser.
The silence in the courtroom was electric. The kind of silence that seems to anticipate disaster. All eyes were locked on Sean Diddy Combs as the air thickened with tension and revelation. But when Cassie Ventura took the stand, everything shifted. Her voice, unwavering and cold, pierced the room as she recounted years of torment that had once been shrouded by glamour, parties, and the illusion of power. But it wasn't just her. A new voice followed, someone only referred to in documents as Diddy's slave, and their testimony cracked the courtroom in half. By the end of that explosive day, Diddy was no longer the unbothered mogul brushing off legal fire with sunglasses and a tailored suit. He was crumbling. Literally. When the final witness concluded, witnesses say Diddy visibly trembled before slumping in his chair. Court officers rushed to his aid as his breathing grew shallow. And as the judge cleared the courtroom, one thing was clear: this wasn't just a lawsuit. This was the implosion of an empire. To understand the magnitude of what happened in that courtroom, we have to rewind. Sean Combs, one of the most successful music moguls of his era, has long lived under the shadow of whispers. Whispers of abuse, manipulation, industry control, and unspeakable parties shrouded in secrecy. Over the years, those whispers had names: employees, artists, associates, but rarely did they rise to the surface. Diddy was protected, not just by money, but by power and the unspoken rule of the entertainment elite. Stay silent, or be silenced. But in late 2023, Cassie broke the silence. Her lawsuit painted a chilling picture. Behind the red carpets and platinum records, she described years of abuse: emotional, psychological, physical, and sexual. She was 19 when she met Diddy. He was 37. What began as a mentorship evolved into a relationship she now describes as coercive and controlling. Her allegations were graphic: beatings, threats, and being forced into freak-offs, disturbing sex rituals with strangers, filmed and orchestrated by Diddy himself. When the lawsuit was filed, many thought it would be quietly settled. And in part it was. Within 24 hours, Diddy paid Cassie an undisclosed amount, and the civil suit was withdrawn. But the case had opened the floodgates. Federal authorities, already investigating Diddy on unrelated charges of sex trafficking and drug distribution, launched a deeper probe. What they found only added to the darkness. Then came the raids. Multiple properties linked to Diddy, including his Los Angeles mansion and Miami estate, were raided by federal agents. What they found stunned even seasoned investigators. Hard drives, surveillance footage, a ledger. But most haunting of all, they discovered what appeared to be a collection of private recordings. Hundreds of hours of footage documenting Diddy's alleged freak-off parties, which sources say include celebrities, influencers, and underage girls. These tapes became central to the federal investigation. Still, the public had yet to see the full fallout until this trial. Cassie's testimony wasn't just powerful. It was transformative. She didn't cry. She didn't stammer. She spoke with the clarity of someone who had waited far too long to be heard. She described how Diddy isolated her, controlling her appearance, movements, and money. He gave her a credit card, one that only worked for his approved purchases. He provided a phone, one she later discovered was being monitored. Her career, her freedom, even her name were his. Then came the bombshell. He branded her. With her consent, she said, but under the influence of psychological pressure. A small tattoo, placed in a discreet spot, served as a symbol of ownership. He said it meant I was his property, Cassie testified. That I could never leave unless he allowed it. But if Cassie's testimony was the storm, what followed was the tsunami. The individual known only as Diddy's slave took the stand next. Their identity has been protected due to the graphic nature of their claims and the risk of retaliation. What they described stunned the courtroom into silence. They were reportedly trafficked into Diddy's circle through a series of false job offers. Initially hired as a personal assistant, the role evolved, quickly and dangerously. What began as errands and scheduling soon became sexual tasks. The witness claimed they were forced into acts with guests at Diddy's events, under threat of losing their home, their job, and their safety. He told me I was nothing without him, the witness said, voice trembling. He said, I made you. I can erase you just as fast. The court heard how this individual was allegedly kept in a service suite in one of Diddy's homes. Surveillance cameras were installed in every room. They were allegedly required to report at all hours, wear clothing selected by Diddy, and participate in gatherings they later realized were part of a broader sex trafficking ring. These claims, which align with material seized in the federal raids, are now under further investigation by the DOJ. But what broke Diddy, what led to his dramatic courtroom collapse, wasn't just the testimony. It was the corroborating evidence presented immediately after. Federal prosecutors unveiled a timeline of messages, video clips, and financial transfers that supported the witnesses' claims. A clip from one of Diddy's private parties, time-stamped and geotagged, was played in the courtroom. It showed the witness in question, standing silently beside a group of guests, while Diddy described them as his servant. The video was chilling, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. The atmosphere, the power dynamics, the silence. When that clip ended, Diddy put his head in his hands. Minutes later, he collapsed. Paramedics were called in, and he was escorted out under medical supervision. His attorneys claimed exhaustion and emotional distress. But to observers in the room, it looked like something else entirely, the weight of consequences long delayed. Outside the courtroom, the ripple effects began instantly. Celebrities once associated with Diddy began scrubbing their social media of photos. Brand partnerships were paused. Music streaming platforms quietly removed his tracks from playlists. And on Capitol Hill, legislators renewed calls for greater scrutiny of the music industry's inner workings. The case also triggered a broader discussion online. How many people knew? How many saw something and looked the other way? How many collaborators, fellow artists, managers, and assistants suspected abuse but stayed silent for the sake of access, money, or fear? In the days following the courtroom collapse, Diddy's legal team attempted damage control. A statement blamed stress, media scrutiny, and character assassination. They denied all criminal wrongdoing and insisted the accusations were a coordinated smear campaign by opportunists. But public opinion had already turned. Cassie's lawyers released a quiet statement thanking supporters and reiterating her desire for systemic change. She didn't speak to destroy anyone, the message read. She spoke to free herself and others. Diddy's slave, now reportedly under protection, has signed an exclusive cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors. Sources indicate that more charges are coming, not just against Diddy, but others within his inner circle. Some of those names, according to court documents, are well-known public figures. The industry is bracing for what comes next. More raids, more revelations, more names. What began as one lawsuit has turned into a reckoning. The empire Diddy spent decades building, with music, money, and intimidation, may not survive it. Not because of one story, but because of the hundreds behind it. The ones still waiting in silence. The ones emboldened now that someone, finally, spoke out. If the courtroom collapse was the physical symbol of Diddy's downfall, the testimony itself was the spiritual one. Cassie's voice, strong and unshaken, echoed long after she left the witness stand. Her final words were simple. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." And with that, the culture shifted. The court isn't just holding Diddy accountable. It's holding a mirror up to the entire entertainment world, and daring it to look.